Really?
I just thought I was dying. And did you care?
That's not what
Because it wasn't about you. Like it has been our whole lives. You took a rock to that girl.
I did that for you!
Now who's lying? You did that because you wanted to. Everyone thinks I'm the psycho. But you were worse.
How you doing? This is Cory Hunter and welcome to another episode of our film school. Alright, so I know there are a lot of mixed feelings about Resident Evil, the show that found a home at Netflix. There were a bunch of movies, but it's the video games where Resident Evil originates from, and for the most part have gained this clout. I'm assuming you saw the show, but if there is the question of what this show is all about, let's dive into it. The show is split in between two timelines, one in the apocalyptic present of 2036 and the other in 2022, months before the zombie apocalypse. Both revolves around the sisters Jade and Billy, with Jade taking the front seat. In the future, Jade is studying zombies, or zeros as they're called here, in the hopes of finding a way to tame them. With that said, as we have learned from multiple sources, the events of the games exist within the universe of this show. And this may be the issue fans have with the show. The beloved characters from the game franchise are missing. Yes, we have the daughter of Dr. James Marcus, one of the founders of Umbrella, so maybe that counts. And of course Wesker, which is also up for debate. If this is Wesker and this is Wesker and they are part of the same continuity, then this causes a lot of questions. But this wasn't really a topic of disappointment for me because his performance worked well, which brings us back to the question of where are the beloved characters? From the many reviews trashing this show, the point being deeply expressed is that it feels like simply another zombie show and not a Resident Evil show. There are zombies, that zombie crocodile from the games, the Umbrella facility, Zombie Zero, Wesker, and I'm sure there are a bunch of other Easter eggs there. But still, audience complain, it's not enough. So, what do audiences want? Do they want a straight up adaptation of the games? Perhaps. Or maybe they want the characters from the game to be more deeply explored. Surely this will make it feel a lot more like Resident Evil. These are obvious answers. Give the people what they want. Which brings us back to the question again. Why wasn't any of this done? Where are the characters from the games? Well, let me start by saying I enjoy the RE franchise. I wouldn't call myself an expert on it, but I'm familiar with it. The games far more than the films, which is neither here or there in this situation. With that said, I enjoyed the show and I see the intent of the show. Now let me explain. The show is trying to make sense of the Resident Evil world. In the games, they are interconnected to build a bigger world, but for the most part, each game revolves around key characters stuck in a scenario where zombies of all kinds being the main threat. And the show could have done this by creating a situation where the main characters were trying to escape, and perhaps that would have held true to the vibe of Resident Evil. But this show does something different. It asks a similar question The Walking Dead asks. How do the world operate after the zombie apocalypse? And this is where the essence of Resident Evil games can be seen in this show, because the zombie apocalypse in RE is very different than how it's shown in other shows and franchises. Therefore, we have two storylines happening at two different points, both after the first initial outbreak happened. In 2022, we see a time where the outbreak has been covered up, and in 2036, we experience a time where humans simply learn to accept zombies as a new reality and try to coexist with them. And that is a pretty interesting take on things. And that's what's being explored. Unlike other franchises where we're trying to contain or exterminate the zombies or find a cure, in this show, a different approach is taken. People are trying to live with them, and we see the different ways people try to do this through different fractions. I don't know if the games have done this, but it's explored pretty well here. This brings us to the two characters everything is centered around, Jade and Billy. And this brings us to our question once again. Where are the beloved characters? Well, it shouldn't be that big of an issue. Taking a hint at how the final episode concluded, the characters from the games do exist in that world. And therefore, for the audience, they should serve as something for us to look forward to. We know these characters. We know their stories, and we can look forward to seeing how they interconnect with this story and how they have progressed since last we seen them. Now, do you remember when people were saying, why do they keep making the same Batman movie over and over again? How many times are we going to see the death of his parents? Or how about, how many Spider-Man movies are they going to make? How many times are we going to see him get bitten by the spider? It was as if the general audience was trying to say something like, we already know what happened, can you move the story along, please? Well, the general audience have been heard. You know what happened to Jill, you know what happened to Chris, you know what happened to Leon, so let's move the story along. That brings us back to Jade and Billy, two fresh characters and storylines to be explored. Now, that may be the issue in and of itself. Traditionally, this is a horror franchise, but here the show is structured to fit the YA or young adult genre. Clearly, the show is trying to appeal to a certain audience, and for a lot of RE fans, especially if they've been playing RE since the 90s, they may not fit that demographic. I see how this can be a problem. But I can also see how this can be a benefit. Jade and Billy are growing up in a world where the T-virus have always existed. They don't know what the world was before that. Even when they didn't know the details, they accepted how the world was shaped and were a product of that. The new Raccoon City exists to kind of hush what happened to the original, but it only exists because of the original. It's like children now. They might not know anything about Afghanistan or 9/11, but they are still shaped by those events. This isn't the story of people trying to cope with how drastically the world has changed, like in The Walking Dead or A Quiet Place. This is the story of people adapting to a new normal. Jade and Billy isn't exactly freaking out that zombies exist. Yes, they know zombies are dangerous, but to them, zombies might as well be lions. Dangerous animals in the wild to remain aware of and even study. This is a story not about millennials, but of Gen Z. Now, tell me that's not kind of clever. So, what are the themes of the show? Of course, zombies serve as some kind of symbolism, but I'll let you pick that one apart. It's about corporate maneuvering, dysfunctional families. In this case, the families of Marcus and the Weskers, with a strong emphasis on sisterhood shown with the relationship between Jade and Billy. With Jade, we see her selfishness, and with Billy, her insecurities and feelings of helplessness, and how those around them suffer because of those character flaws. These traits are also a major representation of the world they now live in. Furthermore, with Umbrella, she's trying to take control and find respect in the corporate world, and that is explored. And there we have it. That's my feelings on Resident Evil. It's not really a bad show. It's not a terrible show, and I believe it respects the lore of Resident Evil. It's building the foundation for these new characters so that they can interact with legacy characters. And for the world at large, it's being explored. By seeing how Jade and Billy fits into this world, it let us see the world through their eyes. And that in and of itself give us a new perspective of the zombie apocalypse. Usually a zombie apocalypse is devastating, But here, the zombie apocalypse is treated as not an insane or instant change, but simply another shift in the world, right? Like the creation of the internet, or how quickly internet and technology is evolving. But that concept is taken into biology in an evolutionary basis. So there we go, man. That's my feelings about Resident Evil. Let me know what you think. Leave a comment. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And as always, until next time.
I'm the future. And you? You're a fucking virus. You keep telling yourself you're trying to save lives, but your hands, Jade, they're covered in blood. Because you're selfish. Because you only care about the mission, about fixing what you started. So people die, but you keep going. You don't stop because that's what matters. You. It's still always Jade Show.